Hi everyone! Today what I'm going to show you is how to do one type of handle. I always call it like a rope. It's a woven rope and they're really easy to make and kind of relaxing to make. There's different sizes. Obviously you can make it as long or as short as you want. Here's a skinny version and here is a little bit thicker. And it kind of just depends on how you want to make the handle, if you're thinking about making a handle. So for instance, this thicker one I have is my handle for my little bag right here. I really like to have bags that go across my body because I'm an active walker. So I need handles that are really long. So I made this really long. And what's nice about this is you don't have to start off with a really long piece of yarn. You can keep adding more yarn as you make it. So let me show you how. What you're going to need is some type of cardboard. So this is one of my favorite breakfast meals, the best. And so I just got a piece of cardboard, and what we're going to be doing is making, it's not a loom exactly, but it helps us with weaving the rope, and so it looks kind of like this. So this one is an old one I've had for a long time, and all you need is just some cardboard. Like this cardboard is very thin, it's kind of like a cereal box cardboard. This one's very thick. It doesn't really matter, both are fine. You'll also need some type of circle. So here I have my Hydro Flask. I also have a Gatorade bottle. The size of the circle doesn't matter as long as it's not tiny. You don't want anything too small. So like my Hydro Flask is pretty skinny. So I'm gonna use my water, my Gatorade bottle. Just like before, you don't want to waste cardboard, so I'm doing it in a corner. Oops. Okay, so I have my circle. Now I'm going to cut it out. So this is pretty good for me. Again, you don't have to have anything big. If your circle is smaller, that's fine too. You're going to be holding on to it while you work. So it's really up to you how big of a piece of cardboard you want to use. I like to have something a little bit more on the medium side because I'm going to be holding it for a while, like usually when I watch TV. So now we got to get that circle in the middle. That's where our yarn's going to go. It's going to like start to build the rope, and I'll show you in a second. Since this is just a really thin piece of cardboard, I'm just going to fold it in half. And then just kind of guess where the middle is. I'm just going to do a little tiny cut. So it's not perfect. It's not a perfect circle, and that's okay. You just need something there. So if you think you want to make a really thick rope, thicker than the rope I have for my bag right here, you might need this hole to be a little bit bigger. So like, let's say you're like, no, I want a really thick handle. Make it just a little bit bigger. Basically, your rope is going to start to build through this hole. So if your hole is too tiny, it's going to get kind of crazy. But if you're doing a little rope, then you can kind of have a little hole. That's fine. Now, the most important part of our little tool right here to help us are the notches. So these are the notches. They don't have to be very deep, but what you want to think about is a clock. So I always start with 4. And you don't have to draw them if you don't want to. Okay, so they're right across. And then I do right across again. Just kind of like guesstimate in the middle. In the middle between the two, as best you can. And then you're going to cut those notches. Now again, you're not cutting all the way through, you're just cutting a little notch inside. Now for this rope, you don't have to use yarn. You can use plastic bags. You can use fabric. It's really up to you. It really depends on what you want to do. I know I'm going to have extra yarn, so I'm actually just going to use some of the yarn I have. For this exercise, I'm going to just show you how I get started. So I cut some yarn. I cut pretty long. So here are my ends. Okay. So here, it's almost, let's see. It's almost as long as if I had pulled my arms straight out. So if I put my arms straight out, I could hold this and hold this end. It would slowly, make that. It's a little bit shorter, but that's okay. So as you see, I have one color. I put the ends together, and so I have my little loop, and I picked 3 more colors. So here, so here's my loop part. And again, don't worry if your ends aren't identical. You're just trying to find the rough middle of the two. And you can add more yarn. Like, let's say you're like, oh man, these are really long. That's okay. Doesn't matter. So I kind of found the middle. Okay, so I have 4 colors in this one. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all kind of in the violet and pink range. Now, this will get me a skinny rope. Because if you can see here, the loops up here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this, just 4 strings, will get me a skinny loop. What I did for this larger is I did, instead of 4, I did 8. So I did 4 more to get it a bigger one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the loop. I'm just going to tie a knot. So see, I got the loop, wrap it around, and I'll put the loop through there. And then make a little knot. Now this, what I do is I'll put it through that hole. Okay? Through the hole. So this is a little bit bigger than I needed to, but that's okay. And now what I'm going to do is the line directly below, if you think of it like a clock, this is 6 o'clock. Okay? I'm going to have this one empty. There's going to be nothing there. So I'm going to put this one here, this one here, this one here. And I'm kind of like just holding on to that back so that way it doesn't pull through. Put the pink one up here and the other pink one right here. And I'll put this purple one down here and these two. So you're going to be left with 2, and they're all going to go into this one down here. Okay? So you kind of have like a little flower starting, and you have this bottom one empty. There's nothing here. What you're going to be doing and how it starts to make the rope is that this is kind of helping you weave, because it's telling you which ones to do when. So what you're going to be doing is the bottom one is going to be empty, and you're going to count up 3. 1, 2, 3. And that rope, that yarn, is going to go down into the bottom one. So now this one's empty. So you turn it around. 1, 2, 3. Here's the empty one. 1, 2, 3. Here's the empty one. 1, 2, 3. And you're just going to keep going around. Now what I want you to notice is as you do this, the bottom of your yarn will kind of start getting a little knotted. So you kind of have to, like, you know, almost like if you had long hair, you have to like run your hands through a little bit. Here's my empty one. 1, 2, 3. You can see it's starting to kind of like twist right here. And what you can also think of if you're like, I don't want to be counting, the empty one, you're always going to be grabbing the one not directly across, but right next to it. So let's say you're watching a movie and you're doing this because it's super simple, and you get up and you go eat dinner, and you come back and you're like, oh man, I don't remember, I don't remember which one was which or where I'm supposed to go, or, okay, well, here's that empty one. Just remember that you're always going to go to this side, not directly across, but the one next to it on the right. And then it doesn't matter, you're just turning, not across, to the right. You just keep going. So I'm going to do a little more of this so I can show you how it's starting, okay? How it's starting to make that rope. Now, what I want to kind of show you, so you can start to see. So we had our loop, and you can just start to see See that little knotted braid starting to happen down here. So as you continue, this is going to get longer and longer. So I'll do a little bit more, okay? So I've continued. Here's my rope. And it's pretty long, but let's say it's not as long as I want. Let's say to have the handle, I want it to be just a little bit longer. And so what's happening is I'm running out of yarn. Like I have this pink one and this other like purple, like they're still pretty long, so that's as much as I need. But these ones up here, they're too short, so I need to add more yarn to it. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So I got the colors I need and just a little bit more because I just want the handle to be a little bit longer. And so what I'm going to do is very simply, here is the short piece that I need to add yarn onto. Here's my new piece of yarn. I'm going to get the two. I'm going to put them together. Okay, so they're touching the two ends. And then I'm just going to wrap it around my finger and then put the tail through that loop. I'm going to try to get this knot near the end. Now, since you're making all of these knots, and that's kind of like the style of the rope, this knot will blend in. Like, it'll feel a little weird when you get closer to it, but all you have to do is make your knot, trim the tail, but be very careful. Don't cut the knot. You want to cut just the tails. So see? So just cut the tails off, and then this little knot will kind of fade in. So now I've added more yarn to my end. But let's say you're done. Let's say you're creating this and you're thinking, you know what? This is exactly as long as I need it. I don't need these other ones. This is what I want. What you're going to do is remove it. Remove it from here. So that means I'm just going to take all of these little guys off. And then I'll just slide all my yarn out of here. So this is what's going to look like. And so you'll see that down here, it's kind of loose. You know, what was happening is that while it was in here, it was weaving it to make the rope. And what you need to do is just kind of create a knot at this end. So just like before, I'm going to get this end. I usually use 2 fingers because it's just a little bit easier. I'm going to wrap the extra yarn, and then my 2 fingers, I'll grip it, and then I'll pull it through. Now I don't tighten yet, because here's the deal. This part is the end, not up here. I don't want to lose some. So I'm going to kind of like figure out how to bring it down, kind of see where that loose part of the rope is, and then start to like pull it, and then you have your little knot. Now if you want to make a loop, you do the same thing. You just wouldn't pull all of this through, so that way you'd have this little like loop happening, and then you would just cut this stuff off. You don't have to. A lot of times inside the bag, you won't see these. So for instance, if we look at my other bag, wherever I put it, oh, there it is. I have the loop as well, but when I attach it to my bag, I put it on the inside. So you can see, here's where the loop is. I sewed it into the bag. And then here's that other end. That's that one. And I just cut off those little guys. So you can't actually see those guys for the bag. But let's say you want your handles to be on the outside. Well, I would think about how you want it to look. Just like this one. You don't have to have the loop. You can cut this loop off and have just these two little knots at the end. Just be careful. Again, you don't want to cut the knot. You don't want to ruin, like have it all come undone. But that's how you make the rope handle, if you want to.